Hello again, and welcome to ManchTalk. My name's Tammy Simmons. I'm your host, and I'm glad you're tuning in this evening or whenever it is that you're watching this on replay. It's kind of funny. I have no idea when the show airs. I know it airs on Tuesday nights, and then it replays, but that's all I know. I have a guest this afternoon, but I wanted to touch base on something I was talking about on last week's show. I was talking about the school budget and how absurd it is that we worry about these little tiny problems when we have this huge school budget issue. I noticed in the Union Leader this morning there was an article that apparently the school budget has a $2.2 million gap in it before we increase spending and anything, because guess what? We have fewer students, so we're gonna not getting as much adequacy money from the state, and they just never adjusted for the fact that we have thousands of less students. But I did find it quite interesting that the vice president of the MEA, which is the Manchester Education Association, which is the teachers union here in Manchester, her big concern was that we bus parochial kids, because $2.2 million gap, and that the fix on that would be if we just kick the kids going to Catholic schools off the buses. I guess there's another public hearing tomorrow night, Wednesday, the 31st, at Parkside Middle School at 6 p.m. if you want to go over and give some feedback to Dr. Vargas. I'm sure Dr. Vargas is trying to find solutions. I have a feeling that the teachers and the administration here in Manchester are just not ready to swallow that pill yet, so we'll see how that goes. So back to my show. Today, I'm joined by Carla Garrick. She is a candidate for New Hampshire State Senate in District 20, which is my district. Mine, all mine. That is wards 3, 4, 10, 11 in Manchester and the village of Goffstown. Thank you for coming, Carla.
Thank you so much for having me.
So this is not your first rodeo for running for Senate.
No, it's not.
You ran last year, and I printed out the numbers, and you did really well. You've got 39.7% of the vote against a long-time Senator, Lou D'Alessandro, who, for those of you if you don't know, he's been a state senator for 20 years, 2 decades. Maybe it's time to retire.
Yeah, well, or just time for fresh voices and fresh ideas.
Well, I mean, I'm not anti-age. I'm not an ageist.
We're all getting older.
I was gonna say, I dye my hair. I'm not 20 years old or anything. But I do think that there has to be a slice of concern when our legislature is filled with many, older people who I'm not sure have to deal with the same things in life that somebody who's in their 20s or 30s or 40s have to deal with. They didn't have that generation didn't have school loan problems. That generation didn't have to wonder how they're gonna save for their retirement.
Right.
It is a little bit different. They're very well established. They live in a home. They've probably paid off their home, decades ago.
Right.
And you've got people struggling to figure out how they're gonna buy their first home. So I thought it was a time for a change about a decade ago. So.
And hopefully the voters will
That's
think
right.
so too.
So tell me a little bit about Carla Garrick and your life in general.
Okay, so I'm 46 years old.
So see?
I am a recovering attorney.
There you
so
go. That's
no
a
one
plus.
should hold that against me.
No.
But I actually think that brings a skill set that I can bring to the State
right.
House in terms of sort of analytical.
Yep.
I also have a master's in fine arts in writing.
I knew that.
So I have I like to think like good left brain, right brain. So I'm very analytical, but I'm also very creative. So I think I'm a great problem solver actually. And I grew up in South Africa.
Which is always interesting.
And I immigrated to the States about 22 years ago now. I won a green card.
I was going to say, I read that recently, and I think Facebook told me that recently. But I thought that was an interesting thing that you actually got here because of a lottery. I mean,
right.
When everybody's talking about immigration and why people just don't come here legally, it's really not always that easy.
No, I mean, the process itself, I think, even for legal immigrants, I mean, it's really, really hard. South Africa was a country that traditionally had low immigration rates to America, so that was why they were part of the program. Your chances of winning are very, very slim. In some ways, I still can't believe I did.
Yeah.
And I got home from law school one day, and there was this giant envelope on.
You won Publishers Clearinghouse.
It was like, you won the free. And so, it's such a huge opportunity to be able to come to, the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Yep.
Of course, over the last 20 years, I think that land of the free is getting a
little less free.
Yep, and so that's definitely one of the driving reasons for me to be running.
One of the things, I've known you for quite a long time. We now are, well, we're not neighbors, but we're in the same neighborhood. And I know one of the times that people might have recognized your name was back, I don't even know what year it was, 2014 maybe, when there was an incident in Ware that you had been arrested, and it led to a Supreme Court case, and it actually had a big impact on people's First Amendment rights and the right to be able to record police when they're doing their job.
Yeah, so it happened back in 2010. So long time. Time flies, right? In Ware, and I was just recording a traffic stop. Friends had been pulled over, and the officer he was behind me, so I pulled over because I thought I was getting pulled over, but then I was told to leave. And I was actually going to drop off my skis at Pat's Peak, and I had no idea where I was.
Yep.
It was dark. It was, late at night. Back roads, Route 114. And so I was like, well, I can't leave. But the guy was very aggressive. So I decided to just film things because I think we have this technology now, right, that makes it so that we can create a record of something. And over time, it's shown actually that when we have a independent recording of any police encounter, really, and most of it is mundane and it's just routine stuff, but once in a while you might not know what's going to happen, and so it's a great way to keep all the parties involved safe. So I didn't know all of this at the time. I was just kind of like, something seems weird. I happened to have a video camera. This was before cell phone cameras. My husband had just given it to me. It was right after my birthday. And I was like, I'm going to try. And actually, I couldn't figure out how to work the camera. So there was actually no footage of that night. But the court found, and it went on appeal. The state, actually, the town of Weir kept appealing. So, that runs up a lot of costs for taxpayers. I think they didn't really do right by the people of Weir. But it went all the way to the First Circuit of Appeals Court in Boston. So not quite Supreme Court, but second, right? So we've got the 9th Circuit courts, and it was just under it. And I prevailed there, and they said, you know what? It didn't matter that the camera didn't work. It mattered that you wanted to do this. You couldn't. You had told them your audio and video recording. And even though there's no footage, we think that you had the right to do that, which, of course, makes absolute sense.
Well, it's in the public realm, and you're a public, these are public employees. It really is, why is that any different than somebody going to the State House and recording the legislature from the gallery? It's the same thing. When you take that public hat and being a police officer or a fireman or the mayor or any of these things, you're choosing a public position.
Right. And so public officials in public should be able to be recorded. And I know it's not something that's comfortable. I'm running for office and I'm like, I'm not sure how much I'm going to like that. But you know what? If you're transparent and accountable and honest in your dealings, then it's really not a big deal, right?
Right. Well, and in a lot of communities that do have cameras on their police officers, it actually protects, it's not just everybody thinks it's a troublemaker thing.
Right.
No, it actually protects the police that are doing their job properly.
Exactly.
Because the people complain all the time that there's police abuse. Well, if there's no police abuse, now there's footage that shows, no, I wasn't doing anything abusive.
And in my case, actually, in Ware, they were the first police department that went voluntarily and got body cams and dash cams. The unfortunate thing is, an uncharitable view would be, why does this happen? But there was actually a shooting 2 years after that where an officer shot a fleeing alleged drug dealer. The guy who was leaving, he got shot in the back while driving away. So, that for me is, that doesn't really sit well for me. And of course, it's, one of those situations where suddenly none of the cameras worked. So I think it's just important for people when they see, I actually think culturally this would be amazing if Granite Staters, if we were the state where people if you see a bunch of, you see a situation, you just literally stand there, don't interfere, don't, you have a legal right to do it. the police officers know that, the AG
Yep.
office knows that, and if by chance they take your camera, that's worth a lot of money.
That's right.
I didn't actually get that much.
No, I was looking at this settlement. It doesn't matter how much, but I know I was surprised actually at the low number it was, considering the size, the impact that the case had. Just earlier this year, or I guess last year now, the city of Manchester had to settle with a gentleman, and I think that was $278,000 because you can't arrest somebody for filming the police.
Right.
You're like, and this is something. I mean,
and honestly, the AG's office came out with a memo.
Yeah,
I got arrested in 2010. The memo came out in 2012.
Yep.
My case was 2014.
There's
This
been
poor
plenty-
guy
yeah.
got arrested in 2015.
Right.
And I feel like everyone's on notice at this
yeah.
stage.
I mean, I think that's true. I don't, I sometimes find myself saying, well, why don't the police know every law? Well, they're not going to know every single law. That's not really their job. However, I would expect police, especially in a city, actually anywhere, I would expect them to know laws that involve people's rights. Gun laws, whether they can record, what freedom of speech means, like the basic fundamental
And
right
I've
things.
had really good interactions as well. I
Yep.
mean, I was doing a little protest once outside, the West Side Senior
Yep.
Center, and the people in the center didn't understand the First Amendment
Yep.
rights, and they were kind of upset, and they
Yep.
called, and the officers rolled in, and they
Yep.
were like super nice. They took one look,
Yeah,
and they were
they're
like,
like,
"Of
"You're
course, you guys
fine."
are allowed to do
Right.
this, no
Right.
problem. Just unblock the door."
Right. Don't cause a disruption.
Right. So as long as everyone's civil, and it's really important to understand this is something that can really help all the sides, right? We're just talking
agree.
about literally a witness to what happened.
Well, and just when in rights, dealing with individuals' rights in general, I always find people struggle, and I don't know how, it's very challenging to try to get them to stop and think. People struggle because they want certain rights, or they want the rights for themselves, but they don't want the rights for the person next to them. And people really, really struggle with, well, if this is their right, then this is this one's right. And people really get hung up on it.
Well, it's sort of also that concept of, and I understand why it's human nature, but the concept of, well, we have these rights, or because I'm strongly on limited constitutional government, right? And everyone sort of has their pet thing where they're like,
But
well,
I want
just for
this.
this one
Right.
thing,
And it
we
can't
want
be.
an exception. And the thing is, if it's going to work, then we all kind of have to allow that one thing
Right.
that we really
You
want.
have to trust that society is going, that as a society, if we're not in front, as long as there's some sort of recourse. Like I say that all the time about property rights, and I said, I don't think there should be so many restrictions on what we can do with our property. However, there needs to be some recourse when your neighbor's out of control.
Right,
Because
and
if it's disturbing your peace, your ability to live peacefully, then you have to have some sort of recourse. But I don't think it should be the strong arm of the law deciding all of those recourses.
No, historically, it worked. We have nuisance laws.
Yep,
So
right.
if someone's making a racket, or they start their construction at 7, and we all sort of agree 8:00 is
Right.
a better time,
Right.
then there was recourse. I think in some ways, and this comes back to that idea of limited government, is we can't write a law to solve every single problem. In fact, we should be reducing the number and really going back to core principles.
And maybe if people didn't have a litany of things that they were required by law to do, that they might stop and think of what they're supposed to be doing right or wrong on their own.
Right.
I think just like anything, if you don't have to think about it because somebody else has made the decision for you.
Well, the thing is
think
also,
less.
we have so many laws that, to go back to your statement about, we can't expect police officers to maybe know every law,
Yeah.
but I'm like, but under
There's
the
cer-
legal system, we as citizens are actually required
Expected
to.
and that's not realistic.
And it's
Because
like
some of the-
ignorance of the law
Right.
is no excuse, except if you're
Sure.
the enforcer of
right,
the law.
I agree. I'm with you. I think the problem is that the government has just gotten way too big with
Right.
way too many tentacles, and people aren't responsible to make, I always say, I want to be left to make all of my own bad decisions.
Yeah.
If I want to make bad decisions, let me.
And people would care less about other people's bad decisions if they
weren't
weren't having to subsidize
Yeah.
that. So, but and then also, as we reduce laws, we really should be I think, increasing sort of community connection.
I
and
agree. It
social
can't just
stuff
be,
and
it's
know
not
your
just a slash and burn
neighbors
thing.
and-
It's, I say that all the time. I say I run for office too, and the best thing I like about running for office is how much I get to interact with people that I don't normally get to interact with.
Right.
Because I want to be part of a community, and my community is my little neighborhood.
Yeah.
You know?
And actually a perfect example, because I know you know him too.
I was going to say, I was hoping you'd bring this up.
Frank from the West Side Trail, and I know he doesn't really like the accolades and everything.
He should,
so
though.
so I know, but
Frank,
he's
just Frank. That's okay.
So he's this wonderful guy who has remarkably, more so than I would say most other people, improved my life, because he cleans
He cleans
bike
the trail.
path, the trail for miles. Sometimes it takes him all day. I like to hike with my dog. Winters are hard.
Now, is he the same person who plows the little path, or is that somebody else?
No, sometimes I guess the city, I think twice a year, maybe comes in with one of those sidewalk ones. But no, I actually told him last time I saw him, I was like, you need to write a manual, because he knows how the sun falls in winter on that path in order to, it might move a little bit this way,
shift this
so
way,
it can melt. And honestly, everyone I know, and we're sort of the same people who are all down there. We all just love Frank, so I want to give him a shout out.
Right, he's taking it upon him. There's another guy in the city, and I don't know his name. He's like Captain Happy or something, and he rides around on a bicycle and he picks up trash. And I don't know if he has a job or if this is just what he does, or I don't know his story, but he's always happy and he's always picking up trash. And it makes me crazy when I see litter. Like, I don't get it.
Yeah,
I just don't get it. And cigarette butts make me want to cringe, because it is litter, and wouldn't be okay with me throwing my coffee cup.
We're actually going to start doing some West Side litter pickups. I got one of those sticks because, Frank sort of inspired me to be like just clean up a little bit. I'm walking the dog right now anyway. I may as well. And always pick up your poop.
Yes. There was a Facebook post the other day, somebody publicly shaming somebody who didn't pick up their dog poop. And you know what? They give dog owners a bad name, and we've got a new dog, and we're going to start taking her out more, and you got to pick up her poo. That's the rule. Right. Whether there's a law or not, that's the rule. Clean up after your dog.
that should be there. I don't know that it helps that there's a law. It should be that it's just something we all do. And if you see someone not do it,
many times on this show I have come in and said, I don't understand why the city can't do X, and it's common sense stuff that makes me crazy. I understand more than some people how complicated things are. Like, people say, why do we have to have trash pickup in Manchester? Well, because we're a city of 110,000 people. We're not Bedford. We're not Ware. It doesn't work in a city with 110,000 people. They're just not going to take their trash to the dump. So we pick up trash. I'm okay with paying the city to pick up my freaking trash. However, it boggles the mind that they can drive by things that they should be picking up. Like, across the street, there's no houses across the street from our house on Barney Street. And I don't know where it came from. And I'm going to be the one who's going to have to fix it. But now I'm on a thing. Like, how long will it sit there? Because I get to move. There's an office chair, the kind with the wheels. That I don't know if somebody threw it there, why they would throw it there, or if it fell off somebody's truck. But it's on the sidewalk on the other side of the street, and it's been there for at least a month. And then it snows, and then and it's been moved. It moves. I don't know if it moves from the snow plow. But why can't the city trash collectors? Can't they see that?
And actually,
can't they just throw it in the truck? Like, just pick it up and throw it. If you see a big piece of trash that's not in front of somebody's house, just throw it in the truck. Is that too much to ask? Because I pay a lot of money in taxes, and but now I'm going to have to go over there and drag it across the street and put it in my trash pile. And it just, those things make me crazy.
Yeah, that, and actually I think a lot of the city litter, or at least in the neighborhoods, is from the trash trucks.
They drop a thing and they just drive away.
And I mean, I can tell when it's trash day in different areas, depending on where I'm walking.
Right.
And, and that's sort of frustrating too.
Well, and I was watching something, now I can't remember it, I'm going to go off on a tangent. I was watching something on TV just in the last couple days, or in a TV show or whatever, and it was a city, I think it might have been Seattle, but it was amazing how clean, the trash areas were. And I got to really thinking, I'm like, Manchester really is, I love Manchester. I choose this, this is my home. I've chosen multiple homes here. But we don't really do a good job of keeping our city clean at all. I mean, the city doesn't do it.
Look, I've been in much worse cities. I've traveled all over the world, so it's not bad. But
we're a city, right? We're not that big of a city, and I can understand certain neighborhoods might be worse, but I hardly live in a dingy neighborhood.
Right.
I mean, I live on Varney Street. People drive up. When people get off the highway on Granite Street, it shouldn't be gross.
Well,
It
and
just shouldn't be.
you know, I'm on the west side behind Goslar School, and I can tell, you
Yeah.
know, when school season's in.
Yeah.
So maybe that's as simple as, you know, emailing the school and
Yep.
being like, hey, do you guys know? Or putting out a trash can. I've
Well,
actually
that's what
thought
somebody
about
else
doing
said. There's
that.
not really any. It was when we were talking about the dog poo. Somebody goes, "Well, if there was trash receptacles downtown, people," and I'm thinking, yeah, I don't really know if there are very many trash receptacles or how often they get picked up. But why only downtown? Shouldn't there be some trash receptacles on portions of the bike path?
Right.
And the city, unfortunately, would have to come and pick them up regularly because
I mean,
otherwise.
Frank actually on the
Takes it
West Side
himself.
Trail puts his own bags out and he collects them
But it's
once a
like,
day.
what if
and-
there's some other trail, path
Right.
over near Sundial where you cross the river? Is there anywhere over there to throw your trash? Because if people don't have a way to go, they're lazy. They're not going to do it. So we're almost out of time, and I do want to touch base a little bit. This goes so
Wow.
fast. You'll have to come back another day. So you're running for Senate in District 20. So you're running against Lou D'Alessandro, and I want to say Lou D'Alessandro, nice guy. Everybody always says, "Oh, I've known Lou's for," yeah, he's an awful vote. Awful. I was looking at some of the bills that he's sponsored, ways he's voted. He's pretty anti-gun. He voted against constitutional carry. He's got a bill in to ban bump stocks, which is, the latest fear-mongering thing in the gun world. He never seems to vote to reform any of our election laws to make sure that the people voting in New Hampshire are actually living in New Hampshire. He's anti-right to work. He takes tons of money, thousands and thousands of dollars every election cycle from public sector and private sector unions. He has one bill in there this year. It actually deals with non-compete for employers, which, let's not interfere in the employee-employer negotiation. Isn't that what they say? Right to work, anti-right to work people will say right to work interferes with those negotiations, but the same person that wants to be anti-right to work wants to limit what everybody else can negotiate. It's craziness. But anyways, what concerns me most about that bill was there's a definition, and granted, definitions in law only pertain to certain sections, but it identifies low-wage earners as anybody making $15 an hour or less. And I thought, what's the goal of that? Because $15 an hour is not tons and tons of money, but I don't know if I'd call $15 an hour low wage.
Right.
Especially in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
And he does have one bill that is my pet peeve for the year. He would like to have all kayaks and canoes pay a $10 a year registration fee, because apparently if I kayak on the Merrimack River or on the Piscataqua River, I should be paying for search and rescue to Fish and Game so that they can find hikers. And then I'd be all about, part of the money would go to the preservation of lakes, because, I always want to see responsible boaters and make sure that we keep milfoil out of our lakes and streams and whatnot. But how about we start with a voluntary fund to take care of it, because there's people like Frank that want to take care of lakes that they live on, and they should be funding the preservation, and people who use them, I would voluntarily donate, but nobody's ever asked me to donate. And I really think it's egregious that they would like to charge $10 a year to every kayak and canoe.
I mean, that's basically a canoe tax, right?
It is, it's a canoe tax. But I've never seen Lou not support any tax that comes before him, so there you go. So yeah, you'll have to come back. We'll have to do some Lou talk. We have like 5 minutes, so we can talk a little bit. Whatever you want. I'm going to let you talk while I'm thinking.
You should ask me
sorry,
a question.
I should ask you a question. So, are you pro right to work, anti right to work, either?
I am pro right to work.
Right.
I think that people should be able to make their own contractual agreements. And I used to teach before I moved to New Hampshire. I lived in New York City, and I was doing my master's, and I taught up at City College, and I was forced into a union. I was also forced to get a vaccination. Yeah, there's
Welcome
a
to
reason,
New York City.
right? There's a reason. I was like, what is wrong with New York City? I mean, the food is great. I will not lie.
The culture is fun.
But other than that, I mean, life up here is much, much better,
Yep,
and
I
a
agree.
lot freer. And I'm excited actually to to push sort of the ideas of the live free or die state, right? To
I agree.
really like look at our Constitution
Yep.
and to say a great example is this Border Patrol that they
Yeah,
did
what
last
was
September.
up with that? I was reading that article and I'm like, I have a lot of friends who are Republicans who do not like the ACLU. They think that the ACLU is anti everything, and they're really not. They come down on both sides of the political spectrum. It depends on the issue. But I was reading the article about the suit that the ACLU is filing against, I think against the state of New Hampshire for colluding.
Right.
And I'm thinking, yeah, why are we doing that? Do we not have? I mean, first of all, do we not have other problems in the state of New Hampshire that we don't need to stop people? I don't know why stopping people on the highway.
I mean, I think that was sort of for show, right?
Okay, well,
was with so it's an immigration thing. But the problem is, regardless of where you fall on immigration, New Hampshire is within 100 miles.
Yes, our whole state.
So according to the argument that the Border Patrol's making, they're saying, well, then the entire New Hampshire is a Constitution-free zone,
right?
And it's like, well, that can't be.
can't be.
I can't like drive from here to my house
Without being stopped by immigration.
And,
I mean, that's really what it says. They could set up a stop on Elm Street because it's within 100 miles.
right. And so, we don't want to obviously live in a state that's a
No.
Constitution-free zone,
No.
because I think what's in the Constitution
Right.
is pretty darn important,
Right.
And so, yeah, I mean, I personally think they've done a really good job. ACLU National, different flavor,
New
much
Hampshire.
like most other
Right.
things here back home.
It's a little more, level, yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've worked with them on different issues, and they're very big wealth of knowledge, and they have resources to do the investigation when there needs to be one. And
I love that in this case it's gone all the way to the well, maybe it's not there yet, but I mean they're arguing on the grounds of the New Hampshire Constitution, New Hampshire sovereignty,
right.
and saying, what, we have stronger privacy protections here, and no, you can't just come and do this.
Right.
And I'm like, go guys.
And that's live for or die. It's not just a mantra. It's supposed to be a
Right.
way of life. Well, I'm going to wrap up soon. I do want to talk about a couple things coming up. It doesn't seem like there's much going on in the winter months, which is really kind of sad. But I did do a quick search to see what events were coming up. One which I know Carla will be at this weekend, the weekend of Super Bowl. Sports ball. I don't watch football, so sorry, I don't really care. But Friday and Saturday is the New Hampshire Farm and Forest Expo, which I thought was interesting. It sounds like a great thing to do with your family and your kids. It's $7 a person at the Radisson Hotel. Kids under 16 are free, so it sounds really good for people with kids. That you can find more information on that at nhfarmandforestexpo.org. That's farm and not all spelled out, not the ampersand, nhfarmandforestexpo.org. And then next weekend, not Super Bowl weekend, but the weekend after, is the weekend of New Hampshire Liberty Forum. For those of you who are pro-liberty and want to go listen to some great speakers, this has been New Hampshire's largest liberty event, at least a decade now. It's been a while. That is February 8th through the 10th right here in Manchester at the Radisson Hotel. You can get more information on buying tickets and see who's speaking there at nhlibertyforum.com. In years past, they've had John Stossel, they've had Judge Napolitano, they had Ron Paul. Get the Pauls all confused in my head. All sorts of good people. Joel Salatin, who's a farmer, a lot of great speakers. But it's a great time, and check it out. I do not know that much about tickets or what's available. If you can buy it by the day, buy it by the weekend. Go figure. nhlibertyforum.com. That's all about I have time for today. If you have any questions, or if you have any questions for Carla and can't find her at whatever's at the bottom of my screen here, that you can go to her website at carla4nhsenate.com. How bad is that I didn't write that down? Or you can email me at ManchTalk, all one word, ManchTalk@gmail.com. You can also follow me on Facebook or at Twitter at ManchTalk. I definitely have Carla back on as the election cycle progresses, and we can talk more about the awful things that Lou D'Alessandro's voted for. That's all I have for this week. I enjoy Super Bowl Sunday for those that are, those sports ball fans, and I will see you next week. Bye.